it really was brought to my attention when I was about 4 years old, when I started to notice that I could see through my hand into the next room. I could start seeing inside of things. And,
Wow.
you assume that, you're a child. You have an imagination. So I had no limiter or a sort of like a guide rail guardrail, actually, that would tell me that that wasn't possible, because my mother's, most of the contribution that she made to my being a parent was reminding me that anything was possible. Now I want you to listen to my voice. I'm like, yeah, in my head, I'm like, yeah, lady, all right, I'm listening. I'm looking at her. Now, when you listen to my voice, everything will fall away. And the second she said that, I kid you not,
I just wanted to start this episode with a message of thanks. Thank you to everyone that chooses to listen to this podcast. By doing this, you're enabling me to reach more people so that they might learn how to unchain the pain to live a healthier, happier life. The feedback that I get from those that take action and are inspired by the show's content is incredibly rewarding. So I'd like to ask you a teeny tiny favour. You are truly able to change the course of this podcast, the types of guests I have on this show, and everything that I do by doing one simple thing. And that is simply hitting the subscribing button. The guests on this podcast are incredible because so many of you have hit that button. When I think of what I want to do this year on this show, this is fueled by the amount of you that subscribe, that tune in, and that comment on the show's content. So please keep subscribing, keep commenting. Any type of comment, please keep them coming, and keep sharing the shows that you find inspiring. I can't wait to see what this year brings for this show, for you, for my community, and for this platform. Thank you. Welcome to the show, Brain Health, Unchaining Your Pain. I am very excited to be joined by the wonderful San Qing, who's joins me on the show today. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, my dear friend. I'm very, very grateful and excited to be here.
And I know we kind of you connected with me because you recognise some of the work that I do when you were exploring the ether. And we had a wonderful chat on your show. So I'm super excited to reciprocate and very much interested in hearing your journey and your story that led you to be the Taoist master that you are today. So before we start, I'd love to know, what are you passionate about in life right now?
Wow, that's a big one. I'm pretty much just breath excites me the second I wake up. But quite frankly, being surrounded by my wife and kids 24/7, that is the divinity spark of all things. Being merged into just every moment is a new beginning. And so I will constantly change my direction on what excites me, but I do have a little bit of a passion outside of my beautiful family. I'm a little bit of a nerd in relation to like statues and figures and toys. And I don't want to, it was probably the lack of, you can go into my brain on that one, the lack of that within my childhood that it never repaired itself. So I have this nerd obsession with like superheroes and all that kind of good stuff. And that funnily enough, I found a huge community of nerds at the same age I am doing exactly the same thing. Older men playing with dolls. It's exciting. It's good stuff.
I love that. You just flown me back to my childhood. I was a massive fan of Batman. And I actually jumped off a settee and broke my arm trying to be Batman when I was 2. And then when I was a lot older, I was a super big fan of Wonder Woman. And I had my Father Christmas gave me vest and knickers of Wonder Woman. I literally wore them out because she was such a cool superhero. So what's your superhero? What's your favorite superhero?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Sometimes I go to the dark side, though. I like Venom, Thanos. Is there a dark side? Sauron.
Wow, there's the question.
And Batman specifically, but you have variables of Batman. And then you have the Hulk and Maestro. I mean, it will be never ending. We could be here for a few hours, but yeah, these are always exciting because you have all these different beautiful, delicate access to high states of awareness that turn into superpowers just by observing these incredible characters. They all have their own little value that they add to the experience, which I just absolutely love.
And I think they also have their shortfalls, don't they? So they all seem to have something, or I don't know if that's the right word, something quirky about them that differentiates them from other superheroes. They're not all invincible.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's finding that sweet spot, right? It's almost like the labyrinth that human beings consider their mundane reality is their mind. They get caught in that and they don't realize that they are absolutely limitless and their potential is infinite. Yet it would seem at face value that they're deficient in many aspects of their life and they have a few little superhero potential, but they haven't met that yet. They have to find it.
Was there ever a time for you? I'd love to explore what led you to who you are today, where you felt deficient. Deficient? Yeah, so you just mentioned the word.
Well, deficient is an interesting word to add to vocabulary because I find it's the most relatable for any human condition. Something simplistic. It's kind of like, I got to water this stuff down so you can sink your teeth into something that is almost like a common denominator for most people. They start to go, oh, well, yeah, I'm kind of feeling in lack of, because I mean that's the little dance that we really take this tango when we're walking through life. Is, well, what does all this mean? Everyone asks the question. But deficiency-wise, this is the really interesting understanding about the intricacies of my own path. Is I honestly have never really, there's certain things I've never really experienced. Envy, jealousy, the need for revenge, heightened levels of anger that, you just can't step out of. It's like my biggest flaw is I can't hold any charge, or furthermore, the old expression, I can't hold a grudge. Okay? And it becomes perplexing for people because they go, hang on a second, didn't you have a few stern words to say about this individual yesterday? And today is a new day. And that's the whole purpose of realizing that you have the opportunity to change instantaneously and change direction. And within a Taoist path, that's exactly what happens. So you complete things and then you enter another birth. This is the symbiosis of Taoism and, the bellows effect that we look through that lens of reality to find the center point. That's how
Sorry for interrupting you. I was just going to say, what led you on this path of Taoism? Where did your journey start?
That's an interesting question, my dear friend. All right, Copper, let's go into it now. All right. We love this. This is a little back and forth between Ruth and I. She finds my impersonations, I believe, quite humorous. But,
they are very humorous, yeah.
In any case, yeah, so, it really was brought to my attention when I was about 4 years old when I started to notice that I could see through my hand into the next room and I could start seeing inside of things. And, you assume that, you're a child, you have an imagination. So I had no limiter or a sort of like a guide rail or guardrail actually that would tell me that wasn't possible because my mother's most of the contribution that she made to my being a parent was reminding me that anything was possible, and reminding me that ultimately, whatever I invest my time into and I believe, I will be able to achieve it. At some point in my life, I'm going to achieve this goal. So, I was a latchkey kid. I spent most of my time by myself, if not with my mother when she wasn't working. And so, you start leaning upon things that are more valuable. Being an only child, you start to create relationships with things that you need. You reach out for to bring it back inside you, when ultimately you realize it's always within you. But there's a path, a journey of self-realization that you go on. So I noticed that when I was a kid, I was very fascinated with superheroes, Hollywood, movie stars, all that kind of good stuff. Pop culture was very exciting for me. Always pursued that. I believe today that's dead. That's gone. That spark and excitement that the audience, the basically the fan and the celebrity are dead. That relationship no longer exists. Well,
it's so virtual now, isn't it? You don't have the same connectivity, I don't think, that we used to have historically.
Well, it was absent of a specific agenda. You felt very free to just go in there and explore the movie, explore the characters, enjoy the experience, rather than an undertone of some sort of like agenda where someone is attempting to commandeer your mind for future purposes, which generally speaking is the narrative of society today. And I think the catalyst of that would very clearly be social media. And social media is just a very potent, virus that we need a remedy for, because as long as we continue to invest our attention into something like social media, we're going to forever be in lack of. And that was the part that I found very alluring to my childhood, was the potential of any possibility through the lens of Hollywood, through creation, whether it was starting with the seeds of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, I love Dungeons and Dragons.
Right? Even my children today, my eldest son is excited about playing Dungeons and Dragons with me. And I remember that as a kid back in I think it came out in the 70s or 80s. And, it's exciting, the potential and the creativity, and it's like an never-ending journey. And you just take a pause and you come back to it, and then it's exciting. You can create all these other scenarios. It's unlimited, which a lot of people today, they don't realize that their whole life is an RPG, a role-playing game. It's not the true nature of who they are, yet they perceive it that way. So that was basically, that led me into pursuing bodybuilding and powerlifting from the age of 10. I picked up a book by this guy by the name of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who wrote the book called Education of a Bodybuilder.
Okay.
And I had no limited belief to assume that what he said in the book wasn't true. So I read the book and I was like, I want to move and create a level above the adversity that I was experiencing as a young boy coming from a single parent household. And I was really being subjected on a daily to bullying. And I felt like the only remedy to that was escaping it and going into basically protecting myself by
Did
using.
Did you feel you escaped into your mind?
Well, no. I went into bodybuilding, and by the time I was 15, I turned into a gorilla. And the physical appearance was all I needed. My DNA, my Scottish roots, a little bit of splash of Irish and whatnot, some Cockney, this and that, and a little German and a couple other European flavors, and boom, you have someone who's got some genetic potential. And once you pour a little water on that, holy shit, you have someone who doesn't look like, and I was never a timid, I need to make this clear to the audience, I was never a timid young boy. I always captured the English language, and I used it. I wrote it like a stallion, and a lot of people couldn't couldn't comprehend my verbiage and my vernacular. What I was able to create was too much for them. So most of the kids that were bullying me would attempt to break my will physically, and then I would just rise up from the ground after a beating of half a dozen kids kicking the shit out of me, and that was a good day. But these experiences, and this is what I explained to you before, have this conversation with Jesus Christ whenever I come across him, whenever I'm doing some type of work with someone that has that spirit in their field. And the perpetration of a human's limited belief, destroying the physical flesh with a way to basically submit someone and their will to wanting to change or believe in something else. And so when I was experiencing this, I would just rise up from the ground and say, is that all you got? Is that the best you got? And people would be like, hang on a second, I just spent a good 15 minutes kicking the living hell out of you, and you got more of an attitude than you did when I first started in on you 15 minutes ago. And the whole purpose of it was my will cannot be broken. Mm-hmm. I knew that inherently for the whole existence of my childhood. Mm-hmm. And so with that, it's more a throwaway for most people when they talk about their willpower or free will. It's conceptual for most. Most people are measuring their reality by a very small potential, but to their overall possibility, because they have not yet unlocked that superpower. So they're really operating on a very small margin as opposed to the potential that they have as all things. Truly understanding the nature of who they are, the power of who they are as a whole, meaning we refer to it as a primordial mother. So, I went into bodybuilding. I became, obsessed with bodybuilding and powerlifting. So for the first, by the time I was 15, I had my first bodybuilding show. I was 187 pounds at like under 4% body fat. And that was quite an achievement. I'm a rather large lad. I can't honestly, not lifting. At my height of bodybuilding, I was about 320 pounds, about 18% body fat. That was it. And I was throwing around some crazy weights, obsessed with it, because this is the personality. I'm a ride or die kind of person. It's all or nothing, which really refers back to my understanding of contracting and expanding. You either do it or you don't do it. As Yoda would say, there is no try, only do. Or actually, is that the English version of Yoda? There is no try, only do. Anyway, the reality is, when you get down to the brass tacks, you are able to create anything that you desire. And I had no reason not to believe Arnold Schwarzenegger achieved his goals naturally. Now, you fast forward to 2025, you go into the local gym, and probably 90% of the people in the gym are using what they call performance-enhancing drugs to some degree. Furthermore, the baseline of that is just synthetic steroids of some kind. This is the nature of reality now. Now, in those days, when I was a young boy, that was a rare thing. Someone taking those things it wasn't a common thing to find someone taking steroids. And so I was mentored by a bodybuilder that could have corrupted my mind and said, hey, the easy way out, young man, is to take a bunch of steroids, but not once. Even though he looked superhuman, he looked like the Incredible Hulk. But he mentored me with nutrition, training. I had a deep understanding of that. By the time I was 11 or 12 years old, the mentorship from this guy, and this was before, in those good old days, we weren't concerned about chomos and pedos. And for everyone who wants to abbreviate that, child molesters or pedophiles was not on the main menu when it came to where we were at on our own timeline. You probably felt the same way, perhaps, as you were a child. We didn't have this concern that this was a huge issue in society. So when I was training at the local church as a young boy, because I went out, I grabbed that book, I read it, I ran straight to the local church. That's the only place I knew that had a gym. I went upstairs and started lifting. I put a 45-pound plate on each side of the bar at 10 years of age.
Wow.
Bench press. I bench pressed the bar 3 times, and then it fell on my chest, and I had to hold it there for 45 minutes until someone turned up. Like it.
Oh my goodness!
Because there is no guard. There's no guardrail, and like there wasn't any. And it was actually a great learning experience. But I was mentored from a young age with this knowing that anything is possible if you put your mind to it. So eating the right food, training hard, achieving the goal. So I had incredible accomplishments before I was even meeting my 20s. And that's when I got this voice in my head that says, go and explore meditation. And back in those days, that's Hare Krishnas and, alfalfa sprout eating, hippies with hairy armpits, that type of thing. That's what we had. That was our option. Or furthermore, just sit down and attempt to decipher the Beatles' Yellow Submarine album. I have no idea. That was it. That was about it in the Western world. We really weren't really. And so I was looking for something, and there was this thing called a newspaper back in those days. I tell my kids about it. They're like, what is that? Yeah, it was a newspaper. You look at classifieds, and in the classifieds, they have ads for people that are offering services. So at that time, I found a meditation class, and I was like, oh, okay. I need to find, this voice is telling me. Now, we inherently, everyone goes, you know what? My voice tells me that I need to do this, or my voice tells me I need to do that. You've always got some dialogue with something in the background and determining what you decide to do as a future action or even the present moment. Now, this dialogue can be met with good and bad outcomes depending upon your own belief system. So at that point, I had no reason not to listen to this voice. It had taken me through many things, not only my childhood. During my childhood, I had a near-death experience. I did actually get hit by a car. I died, and then I returned back to my body after about 30 or 40 minutes. That's a whole nother story. We could go into that for hours. But that was absolutely a catapult into my understanding a much deeper relationship with these super experiences that could be met with, imagination. Furthermore, if you cultivate it enough, you could instantly enter that ether aspect where there's something there that's palpable, that's beyond the mundane reality. So I go and I get this meditation class. I turn up to it. I'm a big gorilla. I'm fearing for my life. It's in some ghetto somewhere. And I'm like, okay, so I parked the car and I'm walking to the front door. There's barking, dogs barking, people screaming, things popping off all over the place that could be considered gunshots. Who knows? As I walk up the stairs, I go into this rec center. It's like a community center that's free where people can come in and do, their things like meditation classes. So I get in there and there's half a dozen misfits, beggars can't be choosers. I'm just another one. And, they're all little, wafers. They're little nothings. They're the typical profile of a meditator. And then the gorilla comes in and, all bets are off. I was not met with some type of opposing resistance. Everyone's a beggar. So I just turned up. I sat down in this sort of half circle scenario. And the teacher was this little grandmaster who must have been 4 feet. When I'm sitting down on the ground, Ruth, this woman is meeting my brow, standing
Amazing.
up. And so I'm sitting there. My back is killing me. I'm literally attempting this what they call lotus position. I look like a gorilla trying to scratch my ass. It was horrible. It was cringeworthy. It was not anything that was exciting. And so I'm sitting there. I'm hearing all this stuff. I'm actually thinking in my mind, I might die tonight. This is a bad neighborhood. I might actually get shot and killed in the parking lot. And so this is furthermore distraction. So this is going on in my mind. Noises, everything else. I'm in a half circle. Everyone's getting postured up into this lotus position. This grandmaster standing in the middle. And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm like, this ain't going to work. This is stupid. This is like, I need to just get up and shamefully sort of bow down and crawl out of here quickly before I get killed at the end of the night. And so, this is how you think. And so I'm sitting there, I'm in pain, I'm crouched over, I'm looking at this. Well, my eyes are open. I'm not like in the meditative state, eyes closed, everything else. I'm looking at her and she stands there and she goes, now I want you to listen to my voice. I'm like, yeah, in my head, I'm like, yeah, lady, all right, I'm listening. I'm looking at her. Now, when you listen to my voice, everything will fall away. And the second she said that, I kid you not, the superpower switched on. Everything turned silent. And for 15 minutes, I watched her with my eyes open, pain gone, everything gone, just looking super stupid because I couldn't do the lotus position. She was doing this. No sound in the background, dead silence for 15 minutes. And I'm like, holy shit. I don't know what this is, but I want it. Screw this bodybuilding and powerlifting crap. This is the most powerful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I sat there for 15 minutes going, my eyes open. I'm looking around, nothing, no silence. No sound, nothing. I'm looking around going, am I in a dream? Where am I? Did I get transported to another dimension? And at that point, that wasn't the terminology I was using. I was just like, this is the superpower shit that I've been looking for. Like I captured sound and I was like, holy shit. And so for me, I was just like, just enamored. I was just sitting there, like basically in a trance, really watching her. And I was watching her every move. She'd walk around, look at people, and they're sort of hovering and they're in their lotus position and there's no sound. And I couldn't believe it. 15 minutes later, it started to fade back in and I'm hooked at this point. I'm like, I've never experienced anything like this. I'm like, there is something to this. This meditating shit is like powerful stuff. I don't know what it is, but it's like, it's incredible. It's the superpowers I'm looking for. So I went from that completely obsessive, as I am an obsessed individual, which everyone is. Human beings are obsessive and addicted to anything. If you give them half a second, the commodity of their attention will be met with their intention, and they will become obsessed with whatever it is. And so I just went straight back to the classifieds looking for more stuff. And this voice goes, do that. And I'm like, what is that? Channeling? Yeah, channeling. Do that. And I'm like, okay. So I literally turned up the next day to this channeling class. And this guy is some tiny little dude. Looks like, to be perfectly honest, he looked like he hadn't eaten in 6 months. And he was the guru that was giving everyone the channeling classes. And you're met with this look on his face like, are you in the right place? I don't think you're in the right place, my friend. And I'm like, this is the channeling class, correct? He's like, yeah. Well, I'm here for the channeling class. And he's like, okay. And everyone else in the room starts to pipe up. And they're looking at me like, what is this eclipse? What is he doing here? It was really quite weird because everyone else looked like the typical profile. Alfalfa sprout eating, organic clothes wearing hippies that were just like peace, love, dove, baby. And I'm fine with that. I wasn't opposed. I didn't have an opinion on it. It's like, I was just, I'll do anything. So this guy's like, all right, come in. I'll take you $10, whatever. Cool, man. Take your $10. I'm doing it. And so... And I'm thinking, well, I don't know what this even means. And he knew what it meant. And like the second I sat down, Ruth, I'm not kidding you. I sat down, they got everyone in position, and he called in his guides to take us on this journey to reconnect with our highest guide to channel. Mm-hmm. And I literally had this experience. I was struck by lightning, this heat and chills of expansion, like basically thunder went through my body. I emanated all this heat and electricity and magnetism, and people were they basically stopped. Everyone else stopped in the room. I was like literally oscillating to another dimension, like taking over everyone's attention and space. They couldn't focus on their own stuff. And they started taking their sticks out with the marshmallows. They're cooking it on the fireplace because I am the center point of all the energy. And Latsu came in. And literally, I thought I was insane. I was having a psychotic break because now I've got a voice that I can clearly hear and I could see this guy. And I'm like, I'm insane. Now, the reason I bring reference to that for the audience is, as in my childhood, I was met with a group of young boys that I had friendships with. We were all sort of a crew of friends. And by the time I was 15, I was that nerd in the room when we're all hanging out as a group. And I'm the guy sitting in the corner of the room reading a Muscle of Fitness magazine, right? I was not partaking in the normal, nonsense that little young teenage boys do. So one day, one of the guys from my group comes up to me and goes, "Dude, you got to go." I'm like, "What?" "Listen, we're all taking acid, we're taking ecstasy, we're smoking pot, and you're sitting there looking at a bunch of half-naked dudes in some magazine lifting weights. I don't know where you need to be, but this is not where this is going on right now." And I'm like, "Bro, we've been friends for forever." And like, so what I was met with was this resistance. I'd already started cultivating this resonance that I wasn't aware of, returning to who I am. Consciously, I wasn't aware of it. And so I literally was banished from my group of childhood friends. And it started to get worse and worse as we grew older. And so did the side effects of what they experienced. I had about 20 friends. To this day, I only have one left. He's dealing with massive bouts of schizophrenia, and he finds solace and complete grounding in all the teaching that I share with him. And then he's able to ground the energy and make sense of it. But furthermore, the other 19 friends, and I kid you not, all committed suicide.
Terrible.
Well,
so terrible.
It's sobering. So when I'm sitting around and I'm having these people go, "Oh, well, you know, you're so weird. You shouldn't be here. This is kind of strange." I'm prepared to embrace anything at once. So when I got that voice telling me, "Do the meditation thing," I was hooked. I was like, this is the type of superpower Bruce Lee shit that I've been looking for. This is what I'm talking about. So I got excited about that. And then when I went to the channeling class, you have this group of people that are like, you're just like, you know, weird. And so when I channeled Latsu, and everyone was like, whatever he's having, I want it. I don't know what it is, I want it. Everyone was like, how did he get it? I've been doing this shit for years. And so I was met with realizing that, you know, the potential possibility, and what I was confronted with was, am I going insane like my friends? Only I didn't take the drugs. I didn't take the ecstasy. I didn't take the LSD. I didn't smoke the pot. I wasn't on heroin. I mean, literally, this was the normal formula for most of the kids that I grew up with. They were exploring all these types of things. And I would be met with them when we would go to school. They would be high as a kite. This was common practice.
I had friends who took a lot of drugs too when I was at school.
And they always met the same ending. It was like, this is not an uncommon thing. And not that I had a voice inside me saying, you're not taking that. I'm like, okay. I mean, I wasn't opposed to it till I really had the stern, you're not taking that. Go train, go exercise, go do all these other things. So I was met with that. So when I channeled Latsu, I thought I was having a psychotic break because I could see him as I see you, as I still see him today. So I see him very clearly. I feel his presence. I share his presence with other people. They experience it. He moves through their physical body. They feel it in their auric field. They feel the energy in their biofield, and they freak the hell out because, holy crap, you said he was going to walk through my field, and I experienced the whole thing as he passed through me, because this is the power of what we're talking about. It's the sensory perception. It's nothing unusual. We all have it. We just have to develop these skills. Furthermore, from the base of your belief system, you really have to meet it with anything is possible. And so when I did this with Latsu, I was like, I think I've done it. I think I'm there where they are. I don't understand how, because I didn't take any drugs. So what is going on? And so the following day, this guy was teaching people clairvoyant skills. And I'm like, okay, let me do it. Let me do the clairvoyant. So I went to the clairvoyant teaching the next day. And he's like, oh, it's just because what I didn't tell you was, when I channeled Latsu, his response, being some spiritual teacher, was, you son of a fucking bitch. He had a violent reaction to me, like, I've been doing this 60 years, and I've really, really, and his words were very specific, worked so hard to master this state of channeling. And you walk in here, an overgrown ape, and you literally are realized instantaneously. And I mean, this is what I remind people. This is why when I have students that literally get it, they get it. It's because I know what it feels like to get it, and it's offered to anybody. No one. It's not just like one person could possibly get it, the others don't. I have a little reaction to people that talk about, oh, your gifts and my gifts. No, we all have the same gifts, and you to do it. We all have the same. So now it's up to you to find a path or a method to develop those skills, so they're met with a realized or self-realized truth that is not a transitory delusional state, but you can actually repeat it and show people, hey, look, I've mastered this. This is potential. This is available. This is what I can do. And that comes in the form of healing, manifestation, clairvoyant senses, a mediumship. These are all potential that can be cultivated through your own self-mastery. And so I went to the clairvoyance class, and he's just looking at me like, all right, I've got all these people, they're branched off into little groups of 2, and they're asking questions, and they're more familiar with this technique. I'm going to teach you the technique. So he teaches me the technique, and it's really, I thought it was pretty run-of-the-mill type of stuff. And my perception of everything is quite simple. I came from this background where if it says, like as the book of Arnold Schwarzenegger, eat this, exercise that, do this, and you get results. And that's exactly what I got from this incredible book that he wrote, even though I was a little deflated at when I was in my late teens when I realized he was taking steroids. But it didn't remove me from the fact that I was getting the same results without taking steroids. So I'm like, if I can put my mind to that, I can achieve that goal if I'm not met with a limitation. So he goes through this process. And I go, okay, let me try. He goes, now, go ahead, show me what you got. Really hoping that I was going to fall on my face, because it was so weird that I just walked in and started channeling this teacher that was very visceral. Everyone's experienced it. It was expansive and it was dense, and he could see him also. It was like, holy shit, how did you do that? Oh, well, you're the one teaching this stuff, not me, bro. You should be able to tell me how you do this. How do I do this? I am just getting started. So he gives me this list and he goes, read me. And I'm like, all right, let me see. I follow the list. It's the list. You do this, you do this, you do this. Everything is a method. People need to understand this. This is not like some very vague, obscure sort of nonsense where I'm just feeling the angels. I might get a sense. No. Within anything is a system, right? And if you really understand how to master the system, that's why I pursued Taoism, because my teacher, Lao Tzu, showed me that I was a Taoist for many hundreds, thousands of lives before this one. So mastering that is helping people master themselves, right? It's an alchemical process that anyone can acquire through mastery and method. So I read the list. He goes, all right, read me. And I'm like, okay. I'm getting this really, I've got a very deep voice saying that if you stop giving me the people that I need to feed from, I will revoke your powers and furthermore take your life. And he's like, whoa. What did you just say? And I said, listen, this is this voice, right? I don't know. It's not like Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu's sitting over there. I'm hearing this voice and it's associated with you. You told me to go through the checklist. I went through the checklist. I'm now accessing the information. I'm asking for information. That information is coming. Not only is the information coming back, but I'm getting a dialogue with this voice. I can't see the energy of it like I see Lao Tzu, but it's a very dense energy. And it's telling me, if you don't continue to give me the numbers, the people, I will revoke your superpower and then I'll take your life. And he's like, whoa, get up. I'm like, okay, go in the other room. I'm like, okay. And he's like, shh. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I started to go, am I right? And he's looking at me with a deadpan look in his face. Was that information correct? And he goes, shh. Listen, I've got issues. I'm working them out, but this entity is giving me the ability to do remote viewing and other psychic abilities. And I wasn't really focusing on the fact that the guy was literally draining the energy of all his students. Like that was, he was literally selling their energy to this entity. And I was more fixated on the fact that what I said to him, he acknowledged as true. I'm like, he said, did I get that right? And he's like, listen, I'm working on my, no. Was that correct? And he's like, yes. I couldn't believe it. I'm like looking at him. I'm like, I'm not really focusing on the fact that he's got some nefarious, undermined sort of tone where he's literally leeching energy from people, literally sucking the life out of them. And I'm just like, I can't believe I got that right. And then I started telling him more information about his situation. And it's like, yes, this is correct. I'm like, holy crap. This stuff is amazing. This is the superpower I'm looking for. This is it. And what's more concerning was 6 months later, he literally died in my arms.
Oh, my goodness.
Brain cancer.
Wow.
And I was just like, listen, when I had him and his girlfriend sit across the table from me, and I'm Mr. Green Thumb, who's literally had 5 clicks in this whole space of realization, and they're looking at me as 2 little scared little children that used to be badass exorcists, and they would teach people sorcery and energy and all this kind of stuff. And they're looking across the table from me as if they're little, naive little kids going, what do I do? Because he was diagnosed with cancer not the following week after I gave him that message. Wow. And then he died. But it was like as if they regressed back to childlike states and they had no idea what to do with this ominous energy that they've been playing with and paying the toll for leeching the energy from their students. And so that after I did the reading, then the following day, I kid you not, we did distant healing. And so next minute I met with this woman who had a sprained ankle. And she was a friend of mine. She called me up. I just got back from this class. And she calls me up. She goes, look, I'm not going to make it. And now in those days, rotary phones, and we didn't have cell phones, none of that stuff. And I was kind of bummed. I'm like, I wanted to catch up with you. And she's like, no, I can't. I'm not going to be able to see you. I just sprained my ankle. It's the size of a watermelon. And she's like, I'll probably catch up with you in a week or two. Because, anyone understands what that really means. That's potentially like weeks of rehab and healing due to the way the blood is not being circulated the same. Connective tissue does not circulate the same way as skeletal muscle. It's a different ballgame that enhance return. Basically, it returns to a recovery system that sometimes doubles or multiplies or triples. And so she's like, oh, look, I'll talk to you later. And she's about to get off the phone. I go, whoa, wait. She's like, what? I got taught this thing called distant healing today. And she's like, yeah, what does that have to do with this right now? Let me try it. And she's like, I don't know what that is. You got 3 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm going to list, and in the end there's this thing they call an incantation. Don't mind anything about it. There's certain things I need to do on my end, and both me, I'm just like the superpower is already here. I've had 1, 2, 3 days of like I'm just waking up to what it's like to be the Incredible Hulk. I'm like, holy crap. So next minute I read the list, I do these things, and the final incantation was so ridiculously like throwaway. And it basically went like this: heal, 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 heal. And next minute after I hit that last heal, from the other side of the phone was, what? And she starts screaming. And I go, what? She goes, I don't know what sorcery you're up to, but my ankle just shrunk before my very eyes and I'm standing on it right now. I'm like, get out of, like, I was just like, and I was like, get the out of here. And she's like, I'm not kidding you. What kind of fucking sorcery are you up to? Whoops. And I'm like, I was literally reading from this thing that I was taught today. And I'm like, I don't believe you. And so back in those days, we had Polaroids, and this woman was a Polaroid fanatic. Just take photos of everything. So of course she would have had half a dozen photos of her ankle. Oh, I sprained my ankle, whatever. I get over there, I drive over to her house, and I open the door, and I'm met with her running up to me and giving me a big hug. And I'm like, what is going on here? She's hanging off me like as if I'm like the next coming of Jesus or who knows what. And I'm like, what is going on? And she, you don't look like you got a sprained ankle. She's like, my ankle was the size of a watermelon. Yeah, right. She showed me a photo of it. And I went, holy crap. And her mother's sitting there because she's still at home with mummy sort of young lady. Hey, look, we all have our own issues, right? So I'm sitting there. She's showing me the photo. I'm still like, I don't know. I mean, technically I should be because I experienced all this other shit. Right now I think I'm having a nervous breakdown, quite frankly. So what the hell? Let me go with this. And so the mother's in the background sitting on her little throne, and she's, severely bloated, her feet up her on the stool. She's smoking away. Back in those days, we had no secondhand smoke warnings. It's like, oh, it's good for you. Inhale. And so she's puffing away. The daughter's hanging off me. She's showing me the photo. I'm like all disoriented, and I've got 3 days of psychotic breaks and weirdness and all this shit. I got Latsu in the background now. He's talking to me on top of that. I'm like, I'm for sure going to the same nutty place that my other friends went to, and I'm probably going to off myself in the next day or two. I'm pretty sure of it. It can't get any worse than this. Or is it better? I'm not sure. I have no idea. I'm going with it. The old expression, let me try everything once. So I go with this whole thing, and the mother's puffing away, and the daughter's giving me this story, and the next minute she goes, I always knew you were a healer. I'm like, what is going on here? She's sitting in the chair, and I want you to come over tomorrow. I've got a problem with my foot. I don't like doctors. I'm like, I mean, how much crazier could this get at this point? I mean, this woman is literally a very affluent person, got boatloads of money, has people pandering to her. No one gives her no for an answer because she paid to tell her whatever the hell she wants. So she's living in this, basically, yeah, the resources are not things, but she was very superstitious, and she didn't believe in doctors. Mm-hmm. And her remedy for her life was a bottle of vodka and a pack of cigarettes was her normal course of action. This is nutrient-dense stuff. This is what she lived on. And so I'm like, what the hell at this point? The girl is just going on and on and on. And I'm just like looking at Latsu, listening to him, listening to this woman. I'm having a mental breakdown. Why not? Let's come back tomorrow. What's the worst thing that could happen, right? Well, sure. I'm now some type of healer. Oh, woo, 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 woo. And so I get back there, and she's sitting on her throne. She has such a distended stomach. Quite frankly, I don't think she's seen her feet in 20 years. Who knows? Like, wow. Everyone handed to her. So, her getting dressed was never her getting dressed. Other people would dress her. So she was never really aware of what was going on. Other things, the other superstition was no mirrors in the house. So she could never see herself. It was like super weird shit. But I mean, I guess that's what happens when you have endless amounts of money. You do really weird shit. So it's just wild. I sit down, I kneel down. She's got her feet on this stool. She can't see her feet. She's puffing away. And she goes, yeah, this foot's been bothering me. Can you take a look at it? And I'm just like, whatever. So I kneel down, I pull the sock off, and I'm like, oh, it's like black. It's like gangrene. It's like chop it off. Let's get you to the hospital right now. It's time to go. And now how you can't have any sort of like cognitive awareness that this is going on in your body is beyond me. But you desensitize yourself with alcohol and cigarettes long enough, I'm pretty sure you don't feel anything. And I'm like, holy shit. She goes, what's going on down there? And I'm thinking in my mind, get her in the car now. Let's drive her to the hospital immediately. And then I've got Matsu going, no. And I'm like, what? No. And I'm like, what? What do you mean, what? And he's like, no, you're going to witness a healing. And at that point, I'm just giggling like a silly little giddy kid that I'm like, this is ridiculous at this point. I'm going to witness a healing. I'm talking to him. I'm hearing his voice, but I'm talking in my mind. I'm not actually whispering like a complete insane nutter. I'm not a nutter yet. Like on paper, I'm not a nutter. And so I'm watching this, and he's like, "You're going to watch your healing." I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" At this point, shit, it's been 4 or 5 days of insanity. What's the worst thing that happens? I offer myself, like my friends, in the next day or so. I think I'm going to go down that path. And he literally just charged her foot, and I witnessed gangrenous flesh going back to pink in color in 40 minutes. And I was just like, yeah, I can't. I'm insane. I'm insane. She's like, oh my goodness, my foot feels so much better. I'm like, I got that. I'm done at this point. I am cooked. I am insane. I just watched the transformation, but then the excitement on the inside is, this is this superpower shit that I've been looking for my whole life. This is real. And so it went from that to, listening to Latsu's every word, took me on a path of finding a teacher. I started training with them, and then I progressively ended up over in China. I got ordained as a priest in one lineage of Taoism, and then ordained in another lineage of Taoism. And now here we are 30 plus years later, and I'm teaching people this stuff. And the reason that I went down the path, as you asked, of Taoism is because I needed to make sense of something that happened to me instantaneously. And Lao Tzu was like, this is how you do it. You want to teach other people that may not be in the same state that you're in, that you want to, they want to acquire a self-realized state. The alchemy is the mastery. And quite frankly, all these decades later, there's nothing more powerful, because it's not that you're taking a leap of faith into even a belief system that may be met with some type of indoctrination, where most people will go, well, religion and philosophy and whatnot. This is a system of sharpening your tools within this state of material. You're taking the components of this space, of this material state, and you're able to master them to what we call take immortality, crystallize it into the material state, which would be, furthermore, you're being able to recognize something that is a polarizing commodity, which is electromagnetism within a dualistic perspective, and you're now meeting up with the unification of the two. That is always the path of a Taoist, is to find that center point, being able to unify those energies so they become one. And when they're one, miracles take place. And little did I know I was remembering what that felt like through all this stuff. And to this day, that's a very common thing for me to witness these types of things, where people are miraculously having healings, bones fused, gaseous sealed before my very eyes. Yes, I'm not on any drugs whatsoever. This is the reality of meeting this frequency. And now you have to understand how to master it so that you can repeat it yourself. And so for a very long period of time, once that phenomenon had died down, I was very much obsessed with taking people with cysts and raising it to the top of their skin and popping them like, a volcano. And it was really amazing, because you are able to harness the energy, and it's so potent. And when you infuse that energy and you energize whatever it is that you are attempting to return to whole, it will show itself as a healing. Things become profound. And the healing that's most digestible for any human being is physical healing. It's like, okay, when I see that, I'm never the same. I can't be the same. Furthermore, it brings me to a specific event where I remember this woman. She had a cyst on her breast because she was breastfeeding. She had a block duck or something, and it was the size of a watermelon, and it was all inflamed, red, and she was really petrified. She was afraid of doctors. She was afraid of any sort of urgent care. And of course, she got my name through someone else. I ended up at her place. And she was breastfeeding her son. I think it was her son. This thing was so inflamed. It's like anyone would take her to the hospital. She'd get a bunch of antibiotics. She'd have to have it, what's that word? Lanced to some degree to get the fluid. So when I saw her, I was like, all right, well, Latsu's like, no, we're just going to blast this thing and watch it pop like a bottle of champagne. And I'm like, holy shit. And she was afraid of the idea of going to a doctor. So when we're witnessing this stuff, and I'm witnessing this with her husband and myself, as the energy runs into her chest, she was standing over this basin, and this thing just rose up. It got really, really hard. And then the skin started to separate, and what looked like a liter of pus just poured out of her chest into the sink. And then we're both looking at this, and there's a hole in her chest that you could see into her chest, into her tissue. And then in the same breath, you watch that hole just start to seal right back up. And this is like just another day in the office. And you cannot, and even to this day, for as long as I knew her, she had what looked like a scar that had gone substantially down from where the skin had sealed. And it's like, you can't make this shit up at this point. I'm like, whatever, another day in the office. But this is a continual thing where you bring in the resonance. It doesn't come with your personality, your opinions on things, your belief systems are met with a knowing because you have to experience it. I just had someone just on my podcast, literally, who had this absolutely traumatic event that was met with, she needed to be on my podcast. And next minute, we had a massive healing session where she unraveled right down to nothing but dust. And all her emotions were met instantly as she was supercharged through her heart, because that was the limitation. That was the stuff that she was suppressing, which then started to transmute into her lung channel. So then she became very, very absent of feeling, absent of empathy, absent of anything with this humanist potential. And so the second you charge that and you show that person that resonance, if that's something that you master through your own alchemical process, that's what we do within Taoism. It's a resonance. It doesn't leave you. It can be audible and inaudible. You are going to experience it as it starts to reset everything within this space. And so you become the beacon that basically just transmit this free, just like your cell phone transmits, a signal, you get Wi-Fi. These are all just evidence of a certain electromagnetic pulse or frequency, which is what we're talking about. But what I'm talking about is the unified state of the merging of the two. That's where you witness people returning to whole, which would come in these miracle events of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing. And so this kind of stuff is what I'm used to a regular day in the office. And so when you witness this stuff, and I absolutely love watching people transform and how quickly that happens, because it happens in seconds. It's not. This is not something that you have to, walk across a burning bridge and you never return to. It's something that you need to realize is who you really are, who you truly are. Your internal, eternal knowing is that you are that. You are that. That's it. Beginning to end. You're all things and nothing.
And when, a lot of people not a lot of people, but some people are listening to this may think, this can't be true. This can't be real. How is this possible? Especially people who are listening from a medical community, because we often get conditioned into a certain state. Right. As to what is and isn't possible. How would you explain it to at its very basic level? If you were talking to a child, how would you explain this power that we're able to activate by focusing the two energy levels so that they're in synchronicity with one another?
Well, yeah, if we water it down to potential, right? So really, this space that we live in is maybe a realm, a dimension, however you want to perceive it, from a scientific level, from a humanistic level, your mundane reality. And what I bring people's attention to is everything within this, whether it's my cup, whether it's a bottle, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's the camera, whether it's you, whether it's me, the currency, the ingredients of this space is made up of this thing called energy potential, right?
Yeah.
Energy being yin and yang, electric, magnetic potential. This is basically the fundamentals. Now we can water it down to subatomic level, electrons, neurons, protons, all this kind of stuff. This is fantastic, but that doesn't really meet someone on a day-to-day basis going, well, I can't see that shit. That means nothing to me. We need to then go, okay, well, within this energy potential, the most valuable commodity that you have is your attention. That's it. That is what is the creator or destructor of all things, everything within this space. So knowing that the real currency is this polarizing effect of electromagnetism. Okay. So what would evoke this miracle that we're talking about? It's when you're able to merge those two and return those two energies as to whole. Now, initially, when you take an electric and magnetic potential charge, they're going to repel each other. They're going to oppose. That's the whole point of it. And that's the paradox where you look at yin and yang and go, well, that doesn't make any sense. They're opposites. They're not, they're repelling against each other. They're not merging together. Well, that's the mastery where you find that center point and ability to merge those energies. And that comes through energy potential. So the simplicity of energy, you can start to feel it. If you're in the audience right now, I'll just supercharge people's hands. And if you put your hands up, you'll start to go, oh, hang on, what does this mean? I'm feeling some type of resistance. I'm feeling something. I don't have to see it. It's like some type of, it's almost like putty. What is that? It's elastic. It's potential. This is just you meeting your ability to realize that this energy is running through your physical body. This is the very foundation of what brings life. This creates animation within the physical body. But furthermore, when you take it, depending upon the vibratory frequential state of whatever this is, whether it's us, whether it's the glass, whether it's the camera, they have different signatures. And that signature is what we call a resonance. And that is what determines the speed of its creation or destruction. And so by being able to master that, and that's where the alchemical process for Taoism is, you bring it back to what we call the unified state, which is the center point between yin and yang. And furthermore, if we water it down, we call the primordial state. So the most powerful remembrance of who you are is returning to your breath. When you return to the breath, you realize this is the components of this space, yin and yang, in and out, up and down, left and right. These are still also met with a lens of perception, because when we're starting to identify with these things as something, we are now removing ourselves from being in that state of now moment, which is that center point. So if I was to water it down, the simplicity of it is everything is energy. And with that energy, the energy is vibratory. That vibration is also met with frequency. The frequency is ultimately, you're able to hold a resonance. It's like holding a tone. It's like if you're singing a note, you're holding a tone. If you're putting your attention...
Do we need our attention to hold that tone, though? So you need to use the power of your mind.
Initially, with your training wheels, you do. But once you activate your now moment, you activate the substance, what we call the Fa Jun. This means that you are now you have imperium, dominion, maestro to everything. So this is now that you're like Spider-Man. So you shoot out your attention and your intention is met with this substance. So it's like you're like a fly in a spider web, and you can move your attention, intention in any direction, and you have access to that spider web to basically manipulate it any way you want, because now you're changing the vibration, frequency, and resonance of whatever that is. And if you hold that resonance, just like a tuning fork, you'll meet it, and then it'll be obtained. So that's where the unified state comes in, where what we call the Wu Ji, the primordial state. So, and you access it through the breath, because this is the most simplistic, infantile state, elementary way to enter into that conscious knowing. So just through breath in and out, it's an autonomous state. You're not really focusing on it at any given time. It's just there. It is part of your animation. Without it, you are dead. So when you put your attention to it, you breathe in. The general hold for a Taoist is hold for inhale of 9. Inhale for 9, hold for 9, then exhale for 9. And so what happens with that is you instantly have access to this substance. We call it, any of my parapsychologist friends would call it psychokinesis. This is a state where you are the fabric of all things. So in this present moment, which is the center point, it's not the past, it's not the future. Always remember, we come back to the center point. You can use yin and yang within anything. Within this construct is yin and yang. So yin is the absorption of all colors, yang is the emission of all colors. And your mission, you choose to accept it, is finding that center point, because now you merge the two together. This is what we do within the alchemical process within Taoism, which evokes what we call the immortal elixir, which is that unified state. And once you sip on that immortal elixir, there's no turning back, my dear friend. And you have that ability to have dominion over everything. So that means that when you move your attention, intention into this construct, it will be altered and tailored to your very intention. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just going to have to pause you, because I'm just losing the energy on my computer. And I've just got a warning that I've only got 17% battery, and I thought it was going to last me for ages. So I'm going to have to plug in my computer if you just pause with me a second.
Yeah. Go ahead. Plug it in. Plug it in.
That's a sec. There we go. The energy is back in the physical entity called a computer. And
there you go. Look at that. So this commodity, the most valuable commodity anyone can have on their journey for self-realization, is their attention. That's it.
Okay.
And
I really want to dive into this though on attention now that I've got power.
Right.
Is because are we better at bringing this attention and channeling our energy when we're younger? Do we kind of lose this ability because we have these restrictions in our mind because of the universe and how we've, the space that we've grown up with, societal norms and all of that kind of stuff? Does that diminish our ability to have the attention that we need? Or can we really pull back the layers of the onion and get there really quickly? How does it change over time, or how does it change in terms of our age?
Well, fundamentally within, a neural science-based reality, that would be met with a timeline. It would be met with your biological age, would diminish your ability to focus your intention because of the way your body develops and creates brainwaves, that it would be almost an impossibility through book-learnt normalcy within the construct. And I would just say that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. As long as you have the ability to have attention to anything, your intention will be met with that. So throw out the whole neuroscience remedy that you can only meet it with so much neurofeedback, or the neuroplasticity of the physical body is met with age, which would diminish your ability to access these brain waves that determine what state of awareness you're in. I would say bullshit, because it really develops. It depends. It is solely met with your belief system to knowing. That's it. So
it's all around your belief system.
1000%. So the path of self-realization for a Taoist is this. It starts with desire. Desire is then met with inquiry. Inquiry creates contemplation. Contemplation basically blossoms curiosity. Curiosity nurtures and creates hopium. Hopium is such a potent place to be in relation to a human's idea of potential, because with hope, if met with the right belief system, you'll have a knowing that anything is possible. So you leap from hopium into a belief system which is created from experience. And that experience is the now moment. That experience then turns into the knowing. And that knowing will be repeatable. That knowing will be met with that. So, if you water it down to the simplicity of someone being controlled by the prison of their mind, and they believe that they are operating inside of their brain, and their brain is their only access point, then of course you're going to have this conditioning where, as you referenced, the societal norms that tell you that you can only meet it with so much human experience through your biological clock. And then once that is met with age, then your diminished returns become more and more evident through your experience. Whereas when I teach people alchemical process, the diminished return exists within the physical flesh only because someone believes that. So again, we can refer to something as overlooked and as simplistic that people use in most controlled trials of any form of drugs that they release on the planet Earth. One of the major components to measure the ability or effectiveness of this drug is the placebo. Yeah. And so the placebo effect, if we just dumb it down to that, means that the potential of what is possible for your outcome is met with your belief system. And then once that belief system shows itself that there's evidence that I got healed. I took this little elixir, I drank it, and I believed it was going to heal me. And that's all it took, was that ability, that belief system. And with the knowing, then you keep repeating it. And this is where we have this whole new phenomenon over the last 20 or 30 years where people, now you can literally go to the internet and look up Yelp, and there's like 500 clairvoyants, 500 psychics, 500 energy healers. All these people are like now identifying as that is the true nature of who they are, which I think is exciting but very limited. But this is the new, placebo effect of this conscious creation that we're all having. Mm-hmm. And so you're limited by your belief system. You're not limited by your biology.
I love that, because I think, when we're younger, we believe anything is possible. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when we're older, we tend to have, the more we have negative influences from the outside, the more we think stuff we can't physically manifest it. And I know we talked about this when I came on your show, but the ability to focus your mind, and, as I mentioned, when I went into hospital and I wanted to focus my energy and redirect my blood to make sure that the nurse put the injection in my body and got the needle in appropriately, my blood shot across the room like she'd hit an artery and she hadn't. It was just a vein, because focusing my attention and the belief that I could do that. And I just think that there's so much that that's a very basic level. And you've described some amazing healing events that have occurred that you've been completely shocked by in your own right from what you've been able to accomplish. Stuff is the things that we can achieve when we put our mind to it, where we really focus our attention and where we have that very strong belief in what is possible. It is astonishing. And I often say to myself, the only person's opinion that matters as to whether you can or can't do something is your own.
Oh, my dear friend, that's just the truth. I always tell people the absolute truth is your truth, and that's the only truth you need to be concerned with. And that will be met with experience. It will be an experiential moment that validates that to be true. And you had that. It's like, okay. And I think some people meet adversity and purely life-threatening experiences where they realize their internal power. They find that. It's like the wet ass hour. It's like all of a sudden all the bullshit just fades away and they realize who they are. And it's not met with the neurotic rhetoric in the background of your unconscious mind that might be met with something else, because this is a variable. People always talk about conscious, unconscious, subconscious. This is all great. You have to experience the power of being completely conscious, because you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. So, through your incredible wisdom teaching and the techniques that you help people with, they're able to merge their conscious and unconscious as one. This is how you access parts of your body that are supposedly put in the category of autonomous process that you have no access to. There's no keys, there's no program, there's no training system. Piss off, you'll never get in. This type of nonsense when you have incredible wisdom teachers like yourself that show people that you do have the keys to the city and you can open the gates and you can access 100% of your potential, and it's met with realizing that you are everything, and this physical body is just one small slither of that. So meeting an expectation of physical healing is such a low level standard. Mm-hmm. It's not really high, yet people are so conditioned to believe that that's an impossibility unless you go to someone with a white coat or you're in a hospital or you're something like that. You don't have the ability to create that yourself, that it has to be given to you by someone else. And this is what we were talking about before on the other podcast was, this is a societal conditioning that comes over generations, over hundreds of years. That's something that would have been a throwaway, that, Darwin's theory or Darwin had met that point in history with, survival of the fittest, and the idea that, there's only three ways to really regulate this humanity is through starvation, through war, or through, basically a virus, a plague. that this is how we regulate the amount of people because of supposedly his incredible insight that, human beings replicate too quickly. We need to slow everything down or we're not going to have enough food to feed the world. All this kind of nonsense. Yet, everyone gets opinionated, and just like opinions, everyone has one, just like an asshole. And that tends to be normally where they go, and they start becoming more imposed on having to control you. They're using their free will to control yours by telling you this is the absolute, which is a very distorted state to be in, because the truth is everything is met by experience. You don't. We can say all these things, and over time, I have witnessing all this stuff, and I teach my kids how to heal. Someone will be riding a bike and go face first into the asphalt or the cement, and they've bumped their chin, or they've got a massive swelling on their head. And, my kids will get around and cultivate energy, and that flesh will heal instantaneously within seconds, because this is the power that we all have within us. And it only takes a second to tune it in, but they're not conditioned where I'm like giving them sort of like a drill. This is not a drill. This is Joe Dispenza's reality of heart and brain coherence through a certain system of neuroplasticity. No, they get together, and if you think it is realized, and that's where your attention becomes so powerful, because that's all it takes. So when I say think it, it's the present moment. So you're not in a place where you're thinking, I'm John Smith calling in the angels of the great apostle blah blah blah, and the divine light is coming down upon me. And no, there is none of that. At this present moment, you're no place, no person, no thing. It just happens. So when I say think, you're in the present moment, and you're able to access the substance, the unified state, and from that, when you transmit, or your knowing is healing, and all you got to do is say it, it will materialize. And it doesn't come from this conjured state where Harry Potter's sitting around a cauldron and waving his wand. Now, listen, there is a time and a place for everything. I'll be very honest. I teach people Taoist magic, and that is very tangible. It's very real. And that's a whole nother podcast. But let's just talk about instant healing from a humanistic perspective, where someone conditioned with the human condition wants to move through the labyrinth of their finite mind and realize that they are a human being. They're being with all things, that this incredible superpower is the sentience that reveals the empathy. That's what we're talking about, not the other stuff where you just want, your neighbor to fall in love with you, or you want to turn someone into a frog. That's another podcast.
But I think when you talk about power, though, you mentioned the lady who had a black foot, and people tend to now have a fear that the medical community is taking away their power. And often that, we forget that the power comes from within us, and we have an enormous amount of potential that we can unlock.
When I witnessed that, I didn't make any sense of it. Now, if I was to sit in that space, I'll be like, oh, Lao-Tzu, gave me the power to heal people. That's not how it works. The truth is, I was sitting there being a catalyst and conduit to a resonance. This woman never believed in doctors, never believed in anything outside of her own knowing that there was something greater out there. And all I did was bring that chill you and I are getting right now. All I did was bring this resonance and meeting her to remember who she is. And then, you witness the reformation and the reconstruction and return to whole when I watched that flesh turn back to pink in color. And it's not about like banging a drum and going, oh, you're virtue signaling and you're not the next coming of Jesus. And you must remember, no one ever heals someone else. They heal themselves. I mean, this is a lot of nonsense too, because we're just witnessing a resonance. All I'm doing is teaching people how to cultivate that resonance. So when they enter a space, things are being altered and returned to their natural state. Which is
you're achieving. I mean, our bodies like to go back to homeostasis, and when they're off kilter, that's what that's what you're facilitating. That delivery reestablishment is back to homeostasis. Yeah. So I would 100%. Love to know, because we've talked loads about your journey and how you are able to help people. And I love that you mentioned the emotional, the physical, the mental and spiritual elements, which is so important for me in the context of well-being. For you, what does optimal brain health mean for you personally in the context of your journey and what you now do?
Ooh, that's a big one, my friend. Elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary. So I gotta tell you, I love Sherlock. I'm a fan. I don't really care any Sherlock, but I am kind of fond of Robert Downey Jr. What's the other guy? Cumberbund or something like that. There was another Sherlock. And then back in the day, back in the 70s, there was another guy. I can't remember. He was a great Sherlock too. Anyway, that's kind of like trying to measure up Doctor Who's. There's all different Doctor Who's. I like the curly-haired one back in the 70s. He's my favorite.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but I know the one you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about. It's Baker, something like Robert Baker or John Baker or something like that.
Something like that.
Anyway, so brain health for me is truly having complete dominion over your right and left hemisphere, merging the two. You are one with all. And that is a brainwave state that can be cultivated through the alchemical process. So more simply met with frequencies, as we've spoken about what this realm is in its essence, that's what it is. So when you're cultivating from me, I like to maintain a gamma brainwave that really has dominion over every possible frequency. So you can go from gamma all the way down to epsilon. It has the same effect, even though someone would say you're not conscious at an epsilon state, at a delta state. Oh, 100% you are if you know how to enter into that state.
Yeah. And we can enter into the delta state very quickly, and all other states, to be fair.
Yeah. And when you do that, you realize that, holy moly, I can make alterations while I'm in this state to things that I would have thought were very limited, that were potentially permanent, that I have to contend with on a daily basis, i.e., mental, emotional, spiritual, physical states that can be altered when you are able to move through that. But that is considered with a participation of being whole. And to be whole is to access a conscious and unconscious process. And that means merging the two together, which furthermore, on a scientific-y level, would mean your gamma plus, which would refer to completely conscious. Now, up until 20 years ago, that would be a throwaway, nonsensical. The book says that only 2% of the population can access a gamma brainwave. Well, that's not going on right now. I think everyone's popping off. You know, the neighbor next door, the lady down the street, you know, John Smith, the sheep herder. They're all popping off in one way, shape, or form. And you're like, holy crap, this is an organized state of awareness. Yeah, it is. It's conscious. The more conscious people become, the more of a collective consensus that, you know, we're turning something that could be ominous into something profoundly awakening for the whole population, which, you know, groupthink can go in either direction. And it depends on where you are in your own state of awareness. But as you're met with this resonance, most people that I observe move into the resonance and return to the true signature state that they know is, as you refer to, the homeostasis, not the obscurely extreme or an excess or deficiency, which is really what happens when things become the admission of or the absorption of within the yin and yang process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It does to me. So I've been absolutely fascinated by your conversation and the power that you can harness within people. And I know there's an awful lot of people out there that really need an alternative approach to the medical status quo that we tend to be dealt with. How can people learn more about what you do and how they can get connected with you? I know you've got an app, you've got a book. What can they do to get connected with you? They can come and find me on social sphere and interweb through theway126.com, or furthermore,
through the Way 126 Experience, which is a podcast I have on YouTube and all 20 podcast platforms. And, if you're looking deeper into these things, I take students on an application basis, depending upon where they're at. Or furthermore, you just want to go from a zero to a hero, and you're not interested in some mystical aspect where I offer, Big Trouble in Little China meets Little Last Airbender and they had a baby, which is the kind of stuff I like teaching people. And you just want to just basically get a handle of your own shit, which really refers to your mental emotional state, because that's really the secret source to anyone's harmonious experience, because they're the factors that are determining whether you have a good or a bad day, is your mental emotional state. Because this is what's the fragile state of the human condition puts you in that position where I have to identify that these are things that I'm experiencing, and if I don't get a handle of them, I'm going to go south really quickly, and everything is going to unravel. So if they're looking for that, they should definitely check out my app. I say that, if you just put your attention to it for 9 weeks, it's cheaper than one visit to a therapist or a psychologist that goes nowhere, and you master a state that gives you the ability to switch on and off your mental emotional state like an icon on a computer screen. Always remember, your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. It must be mastered with a certain ability to access that. So what is the keyboard of your physical body that is met with that? It's your neuroplasticity. So how do you enter that? This app enters it through sound, and it creates and evokes a visual and audible experience, creating a kinesthetic charge that validates. Have you ever seen that movie Ghostbusters?
Oh, yeah.
And he's got the hot chick, and they're doing an experiment, and this guy's like, he goes, now I want you to tell me which card am I holding up? And it was actually an ESP test, right? And so every time the guy gave him an answer, he'd shock him, and the gum would come out of his mouth. Oh man, that hurt. Goes, you got it wrong. And the audience could see he got it right, but he's trying to pander to this really, young girl or whatever. So what happens is, this is like your Ghostbuster ESP test. When you charge the nervous system and you get to validate it through that energy potential, you start to create the simplicity of what we call synapses in the brain, new information energy highways that you then take dominion over, right? And so I never tell people to walk into something with blind faith. That's just sort of some sort of indoctrinated cult-like nonsense. What I want you to do is, when you apply this app and when you first hit the button, you don't have to have any prerequisite. You don't have to be a guru, a yogi, a Pilates instructor, a guided meditation expert, a neuroscientist. You don't have to be anyone. You could be Joe Smith that wants to get a handle of their mental emotional state. You hit play, and the first evidence you're going to get is you feel like you had 8 pina coladas, a full body massage, and 10 days in the Bahamas. They go, what is that? How is that possible? How is that? All I'm doing is sitting here and I'm looking at a screen and I'm listening to this, what seems like really relaxing sort of music. And with that music, it has sound and it has imprinted magic that enters into your nervous system and makes alterations to regulate what we call your energy centers. Now, to some people, they would call them chakras. To a Taoist, we call them dantians, the energy elixir field. And those dantians are being regulated through the visual and audible experience. And as you regulate the energy center, it's like playing a video game like Super Mario Brothers, you access the next level. And it starts to present itself as you become fluid. It's really good to be you. I mean, I have people that are, police officers, judges, accountants that use this app that are not spiritual people at all. Mm-hmm. And the app has about 2 years worth of training in it. If you hit 2 years worth of training, which is 108 energy centers, you will be beyond superhuman. But if you just access the first 9 energy centers and you empower yourself to realize that you can control your emotions at will, holy shit, you become empowered. And so accountants specifically love it. They're like, oh, it's tax season and I am as high as a kite and I don't give a shit. everything is perfect, because they have that ability to recognize that what is a trigger or trauma is energy. That's all it is. And it has an image that is history, a past. All you're doing is now you're dissolving the feeling and the emotion, and you can keep the story as wisdom. Now you can look at it as wisdom and go, okay, it doesn't have that trauma or charge to it anymore that doesn't evoke you to respond in a certain way or furthermore react. And so if someone's looking to become a zero to a hero, and what happens is you master that state, and let's just say you use this app in 9 weeks and you go, I'm done. You have that mastery that is with you for the rest of your life. And you can measure it on a daily basis using an exercise that I give the experiencer that can instantly tap into seeing how quickly they harness the energy potential. And that happens from day one. This is not some non-belief sort of pander to yourself over 9 weeks and maybe you'll come up with something. You will be able to measure your own experience and your own results within the first experience, which is 27 minutes. So 27 minutes of your life. Anyway, that wasn't a plug for my app or anything, but you did ask. No,
no, I think it's amazing. And I think it's been just such a fascinating conversation. And thank you for sharing the wisdom and how people can unleash the power from within themselves and untap their full potential. Is super exciting. And remember, everybody, this show is all about brain health, unchaining your pain. You're not stuck with the brain or the body, indeed, that you have. You have the power to make it better. And SanQing has kindly been here to share his wisdom and show us how he does it. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
It's a real pleasure, my dear friend. I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
Yes, indeed.